that we promised you would be coming and got you all excited all the way up until 5:30 today. She's coming on, Miss Yvonne Nelson, to share with us information that she has with the program she's working with, the right program. And guess what? As you all know, we don't tell your story. You come on to tell your own story. So with that, we're gonna get started. Jackie, I'm gonna turn it over to you, the technical director of Electra James Inspirational Talk, did all the footwork to get this wonderful interview on tonight. So I'm just gonna sit back and be honored.
Well, thank you, Electra. And I want to introduce everyone to my wonderful friend, Yvonne Nelson. Yvonne and I have known each other for, I don't even know how long. Longer than I probably could even remember. But Yvonne is a very passionate person, and she loves being involved in serving mankind. And right now, she's going to give us a presentation, tell us about a program that she's become involved in that is near and dear to both Electra and my heart. So, Yvonne, 30 minutes, but we actually can keep talking for an hour if we need to. So, go ahead and give us your stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Jackie, just off the top of my head, I saw you say that you saw the performance of Oklahoma, and that was 37 years ago.
Oh my
God. That was before Larry got married. That's how we met.
That's the first
we were both
time. Yeah, that was my first time seeing you on the stage. Yeah. Yeah.
So, hello, my name is Yvonne Nelson. First off, let me mention that I had a very severe stroke several years ago, and that caused some minor issues with my memory and my ability to recall words and phrases. And for that reason, I will be reading from a script I prepared myself to ensure that I don't waste your time while I'm mentally searching for words, or to ensure that I don't miss anything important, okay? And so please, if I look down a lot, please don't take it to heart. That's not what I meant to do at all. I just want to keep on track. So, and also, Electra said, I'm involved with the RIGHT program. Well, that's true. RIGHT is actually a nonprofit 501c3 that we organized. And I'll tell you the story about all that. If you want to do a 501c3, you'll learn a little bit more about it tonight, although there's not going to be anything technical. I can promise you that, unless we sit Larry in front of the computer. But anyway, okay. About a year ago, I got involved with a foundation located in the Democratic Republic of Congo called Build the Resilience in Congo, also known by the little anagram BRIC, not anagram, what's it called? Anyway, BRIC, BRIC. So when I say BRIC, I'm referring to the foundation that's in the Congo, and it's Build the Resilience in Congo, so BRIC for short. And how did that happen? Well, I had a friend, Jan Owens Kemp, who would talk about her children and her grandchildren when I would visit her. And she talked about her son, Jeff Kemp, who is an attorney in the Woodlands, that area, and her daughter, Colleen, who I met when Colleen came over to visit with and stay with Jan for a while, and her daughter, Kana, who, as it turned out, she was about my age, and we had actually been in the same room quite a bit when we went to seminary in the morning. Didn't even know each other, just ran around with your old pals. Well, anyway, Kana talked about her son. Well, she has 3 sons, and I don't believe I've ever met Ben, her third son, who is a free spirit, who is working and living in the historic Hawaiian surf town of Haleiwa, spelled differently, Haliewaa, but you say Halieva, on the
Okay.
island of Oahu. And on Byron, I did meet him at Jan's, my friend Jan's funeral some years ago. And he's an artist and he's very busy living and painting in Las Vegas. And last but not least at all is her son Boyd, who is a dancer. Dancer's one thing he is, but he's also certified as a dance movement therapist and is working in Greenville, South Carolina. And let me tell you a little bit more about that I found out. Sometime back, Boyd, who's the dancer, was trying to raise funds to buy an airplane ticket to go to the Congo and work with this group who was trying to help children heal from being survivors of human trafficking. Well, I'll get more into that later. And so obviously I got involved then. Well, like, I don't know, it was last year, I think. Uh, well, I'll tell you first that he's a trained dancer and it's a dance form called Buto. And it began in the 50s in Yokohama in a studio. And it's an expressive type of dance that you do to release your emotions and connect with your surroundings. And he even moved to Yokohama to be a kindergarten teacher for English so he could go to the studio to study Buto for a couple of years.
Okay.
And one of the things about theater, as much as I kind of been silly about it, I say, oh, I was just a theater major. The really great thing about theater or any kind of situation like that in the fine arts is that often you feel, have you ever cried or laughed or something at a performance?
Yes.
That's called a catharsis. And when people are traumatically hurt, sometimes having that catharsis helps to get that hurt out of the body and the mind that they can. And so that was why it was good for Boyd to be doing that. By the time he went to the TRC with the theater group, he had met in Costa Rica. He had been studying Buto for 2 years in Yokohama while also teaching the kindergarten. So it was in Costa Rica that he attended a workshop by the director of the theater program that visits Brick every year or so. And this is where the connection came that ultimately led Boyd to join the theater group for one of their visits one summer, and that he was trying to get the airfare for. And he was the only non-French speaking member of the group in DRC in the Congo. And he met Francois during that visit, and Francois is the coordinator of BRIC. And they really connected and hit it off with one another, and that was when Boyd decided he wanted to help BRIC somehow. And he even started a GoFundMe fundraiser last year in 2020. And that's how I became involved enough that I had started an ongoing conversation and discussion with Francois, the BRIC coordinator. So that's how I came to know of BRIC through Francois. So Boyd's GoFundMe last year turned into me and my husband forming a 501c3 nonprofit organization called RIGHT, Relief in the Congo for God's Children from Human Trafficking. And that's we, believe it or not, RIGHT is in there. And I'd heard of child soldiers before, but I really didn't know what they were talking about. And I didn't understand the details of what they had experienced. And I'll talk more about that later. And you can read their stories on the RIGHT Facebook page, which I'll remind you of later. So BRIC engages in 4 central activities, and this is what we're trying to help fund, okay? First, the BRIC artists and the theater people sensitize communities and intervene with militias that might be there with child soldiers, rescuing the children from out of their midst. I mean, that's the upshot. They rescue these children. I used to think, how did they do that?
Okay.
And then I found that it was because they would go to communities and sensitize them to feel their feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they do first of all. Second of all, they provide art and music therapy for former child soldiers and abused females
Mm-hmm.
to help them heal from the trauma they've experienced. And then third, with the assistance from the communities, BRIC provides vocational training for the former child soldiers and abused females
Mm-hmm.
so they can earn a living and take care of their families. And fourth and last, BRIC organizes efforts at restorative justice, whereby former child soldiers can give back to the community that was impacted by their action. They cause them damage, and they try and have some restorative justice for that.
Okay.
More specifically, the people in BRIC do the following: they educate, raise awareness, and sensitize the population of these communities through images that reflect the problems related to the economic situation and socio-cultural development of those who are rescued. So these children, they have nothing, okay? They have to, just like us, they have to introduce this idea to these people in these communities.
Okay.
And they strengthen the empowerment of the young former child soldiers and abused females in terms of awareness and self-care through different apprenticeships and trades. And they exploit theaters as a tool of transformation. That's really the highest calling I can think of for someone in the arts, besides entertaining and providing a catharsis, actually focusing on getting that catharsis so that someone can heal from their trauma. And they organize youth and introduce them to different trades and offer activities of non-formal organization education. And they provide the necessary supervision of these young people. Someone's got to supervise them and everything. So they stimulate the desires of communities to peacefully resolve conflicts, and thereby they'll build peace. As they resolve the conflicts peacefully, they will, entrench the community in peace. And they use research and the participatory method to ensure that activities meet the expectations of the target audience, whether it's a community or it's a militia member who has to let these children go, or the children. They have different targets for their audiences. And they promote gender equality, because the gender equality is not too good in these situations. And finally, they act as lead advocates for human rights. Now, that's a real mouthful, I know.
That's okay.
But basically what happens is that the children are kidnapped by rebels. And sometimes this happens when they're with a family, and that could result, and often does result, in violence to the rest of the family. They may have family members who are killed or abused and take the kids away. Or sometimes they're running an errand for the family, and they're kidnapped while they're away on the errand, and the family never knows what happened to them. They just never come back. So these children, I don't want to sound like someone who's doing preying on your emotions, but these children are ripped in their homes. I mean, can you imagine that? Your child, don't know where they are, and it turns out they're in a pretty bleak situation, and their child is just stolen from them. They have no childhood. I mean, even if someone gets rescued when they're 17 or 19, they're kids. They have never been taught the things that we teach our children, and their life is, like I said, bleak. And the boys are forced to act as child soldiers, or else they will be killed by the rebels. I suggested, when Boyd did his GoFundMe, to change the wording. He said child soldiers, and I said, I think you should add the word former child soldiers. And he was like, oh yeah, that's true. That pretty much makes you realize a little bit more of what the situation is. And the girls sometimes, depending on the situation, girls and other members of the family are subjected to violence and abused and face unspeakable trauma when they are kidnapped. And the one former child soldier put it this way, and you'll see it on the right Facebook page if you're able to go to it. One former child soldier said, "The rebels fed me on a diet of bush herbs, hemp, and methamphetamine, which means that the children ate less and they learned to know no fear." That's the way the rebels like it. They like these children who are basically automatons to do what they want them to do and to have no fear and be a great little soldier for them while they do the other stuff. So what happens? Took me a long time to figure this out. Francois and I, his first language, I'll tell you this later probably, but his first language is not French. So I would be Google translating his French. And sometimes it didn't quite make sense, but I got the feeling for what he was saying. But I was filling in a lot of those gaps, okay? Brick traveling arts and theater troupes go to these villages or towns, and sometimes a militia group, a rebel militia group might have a mission in that town, like I said, and the brick personnel try to sensitize the armed group and the community and put them in touch with their feelings, like I said. And sometimes with little resistance, the child soldiers are allowed to leave the militia group. I don't know exactly how that happens, but I'll tell you what, I'm sure that the Lord helps make this work progress. The ways of the Lord are mysterious, and it's hard to imagine how this happens and how they talk these people out of it sometimes. Sometimes you think, oh, kid is grown up and he's not useful anymore. He can't be as easily manipulated or something like that. But that doesn't account for the fact that some of these youth are not youth, they're kids. And I don't know why they let them go. Maybe they're the more strong-willed ones who they can't manipulate as much. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But they do have, the children are then taken to Goma in the Congo, where they have, I understand, they have a compound where they can be safe. And unfortunately, I remember this last summer, we had a situation where they had an what was it called? A volcano eruption near Goma. I mean, right near Goma. And in the ensuing craziness, I think that the compound was left open, and many people were killed rebels took advantage of that, and people were killed and everything, and things were stolen. And anyway, then the brick personnel worked to help the children heal through the use of various art activities. They love playing the drums and singing and role playing exercises or other theater or dance exercises that help them to release their trauma. And they do more than this. As the brick coordinator says, Francois, he says, art is medicine. And I think I'm 67 and I've never heard someone say that before. Art is medicine. And I think that's a lovely thought. So, you don't necessarily have to be a healthcare worker. You can use your own creative art to help someone.
Yeah.
And they teach the youth different trades and provide activities, non-formal education, like I said, and they provide supervision of the young people. I mean, can you imagine what life would be like if you hadn't been trained in the most basic forms of civilized behavior and civilized society?
Yeah.
They help these people focus on their future. And they help prepare them for the next step forward in a civilized society. So they teach these children and youth basic civilized things that we do and basic courtesy. They've never been taught any of these things. And like I said, they work with the communities to want to peacefully resolve conflicts and build peace. Because you know how it is. If you get upset with someone, maybe in the moment you don't really feel like I don't want to make nice. I wanna put you through the ringer like you put me through the ringer or whatever. So they really work with these communities to feel more and to understand that they can help these children and help their own society and communities, and they help them learn to want to peacefully resolve these conflicts and build peace in their community. So what did I do personally to move this work forward? Well, I'm just one person, and I won't be here forever. And I can't.
It's
I
okay,
can't know that
Bob.
I'll always be there. And and anyway, that's I didn't say that BRIC personnel brainstorm ideas and they organize their efforts at restorative justice. And then the former child soldiers can give back to the communities that were impacted, and they can help the communities heal from the damage they've caused. It's all sounds very intimidating, doesn't it? And it is, honestly. It takes a lot of energy and focus and love. BRIC personnel spend a lot of time and expend a lot of energy to help these children and youth, both male and female. So now that you know how I became aware of this issue and what BRIC continues to do to work to help these children, we'll tell you more about what I did. Well, I sent a letter to a very good friend of mine and his wife, Nathan and Jan, because he's a really smart guy and she's a really smart girl. And I told him what I wanted to do. I wanted to start a 501c3, and could he help me navigate the waters of doing such a thing? And he did. And as it turned out, Nathan himself has created some 501c3 organization, nonprofits before. He, along with another man, David, helped me to navigate the waters of what it takes to create a nonprofit organization. And you can't do it for free. You have to put in the effort and the time to start it. And it's worthwhile in the long run. I mean, what do they call that? Spent cost or something like that? When you've spent money on a ballet and you can't go because your best friend comes into town and you want to do that with them, well, you haven't lost anything really, because you're not throwing that $9 out tonight when you go to see your friend. That's already happened. That's spent money. So eventually, if you start one of these organizations, well, that's just spent money, right? And it takes money to open a bank account. I mean, Wells Fargo is really great in that they have changed the necessary requirements for having a bank checking account, saving account. You don't have to have, $1,000 put in every month by, what's that called? Auto deposit. You don't have to, there's a lot of things you used to have to do, but now one thing you can, there's several things you can do, but one of them is keep $500 in the checking account. And if you do that, they don't charge you anything. So we did that. We put in $600, I think, and we bought some checks because we didn't know if we'd ever need checks or not. So we just went ahead and ordered them so we'd have them on hand and we didn't have to wait to get them. Wait for them to arrive when we suddenly decided we needed them. And so there's a little bit less than $100 now, but it's going to stay over 500. We're not going to touch it. And let's see, David, I was telling you about David, and he works for an international water organization. They help communities to have access to good water. And he had met Francois before and helped them. I know one of the things they do sometimes is sell water filters to a community or something and make $150 or something like that to go in. And I don't know if you know this. I learned this some years ago. Children are often tasked with gathering the water for the family's use, and it all keeps them out of school. And the water's not always very good. So this is a wonderful thing that they do to help these communities have a water source that's really good, and then also the kids can then go to school and have a life in front of them instead of just the bleakness of not having an education. Anyway, David knows the BRIC coordinator, Francois, personally, and he traveled to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he's gone all sorts of places that are in need of good water throughout the world. And I didn't realize it when I set up the Zoom meeting where Nathan and David and I and my husband were going to communicate about what was needed to create the nonprofit. But I now had two people who had worked in person with Francois and BRIC and could speak to Francois's integrity and his compassionate heart. You don't have to worry that the guy's pulling something over on me. I know two people, and I've communicated with others who have worked personally with him who do that sort of work, and they all speak to that. And so does he need to be taught things sometimes? Probably. I don't know. I suppose I've taught him some stuff, but I don't think so. If I did, it just happened, right? But anyway, earlier in this year, in January, late January of this year, we were able to create the 501c3. It's called RIGHT, like I said, RIGHT, all in caps, space, Relief in the Congo for God's Children from Human Trafficking. Now that's a pretty awkward acronym, I know, right? But it's in there, I promise. It's in there if you look at those words. Now the name doesn't denote a political right, okay? It's used as a phrase, like in the phrase, choose the right or doing the right thing. That's why we used it. And you can search for it that way. And the more people that are searching for it, eventually all you'll have to do is probably type right and it'll come up. But right now it takes a little harder. It takes a little more effort. Anyway, we thought it would be a breeze to open a right bank account after we got the 501c3. But it wasn't. I mean, this was all in the middle of spending months, like 6 months, preparing our house for sale and pack up our house and set things in order to move out of state thanks to the pandemic. And so we were trying to do this and it was all taking so long. And then we thought, okay, it's done. We'll have a bank account. No, we didn't have a bank account. We had to wait 6 weeks, which turned into months, to receive certain paperwork that the bank needed to prove that RIDE was a 501c3. And we could open a bank account that had nonprofit status. And suffice it to say, we weren't able to open it until mid-August of this year. I mean, a little over a month ago. So, you know how things are. Everybody knows lumbers are ridiculously expensive. You can't get a new car anymore. They're all sold. And so used cars are going for a ton of money right now. Got one to sell. But we were holding monthly board meetings for Zoom. And the board members, they reside in 3 different states. We have a couple of people in North Carolina, and it's North Carolina, isn't it? And Texas and Oklahoma. And that's how we have our board meeting. And we plan to run our first fundraiser in September of this year. And as of this writing, I was gonna say we're still waiting approval to create a GoFundMe fundraiser, but my husband found out just before we went online, it's been approved. Yes, because no one changes their signage or what's online. They'll say it takes 3 days. We had to make a business PayPal account. It takes 3 days, right, to be approved as a nonprofit. Took about, how long? At least 10 days. And and then they turned it over to GoFundMe, and GoFundMe had to approve it as a nonprofit, which did not take 3 days. It took more like 10 as of this moment. And they also had us jump through some more hoops. It's just crazy. It's very difficult. So we haven't been able to create the fundraiser on GoFundMe because we couldn't go past, you go through these certain things and then all of a sudden they go, now you have to have this. We couldn't go any further. We had no idea. We did a GoFundMe for someone about 5 years ago, but I'm sure it's a lot different at this point. But we're going to try and do it. We'll be up tonight probably trying to do it to get it started at least on September 30th. Whenever we start it, it's not going to go forever. It'll go for 30 days, period, a finite period of time. We had created a Facebook business page that's for a nonprofit. And you can go there and read some of the stories that we have put up of the children and youth, and there are also pictures of them above their stories. And
I just put the link in the comments.
oh, good. Thank you so much, Jackie. You can also click on the About tab to read more about Wright and Brick. Some of it'll show up. I don't know. Everything's different. It depends on what's going on a desktop or a phone, and everything's different places, but you can navigate around and learn as much as possible. But we are in our infancy. We have put some things in there, but we have plans to put more in there. Like on the video tab, you click on I want to put this interview. Yeah. Anyway, on that page, also they list a board of directors. Ooh, so that if I ask somebody to go there and like it, and they're like, why are you doing names on there somewhere? I mean, you have to do a little bit of navigating, but it is on there as a secretary. And I'll tell you more about that later. But we have the bank account information, and like I said, it's been approved now, so we'll start working on it. Our plan was to hold 3 fundraisers each year, one in September, one in January, and one in May. We don't expect anyone to donate multiple times or a lot of money, although that would be nice. But we do understand some times of the year are better for some people to give than others. So maybe you'll see this thing in January and you think, well, I don't have money right now, but in May, you might have some money maybe left over from your IRS thing. I don't know, but it's different for everybody, and that's why we're doing it 3 times. We still hope to add a donation button to the Wright Facebook page, but we're still working on that. That way someone could donate anytime they want. If they went to the page, there would be a donate button and they could click it and my husband has been making a Wix site, computer website. Not that we want to give that, it's probably a long URL out to people, but it can be connected to the Facebook donate button so that it goes to my Wix site, which goes to put the money into the bank account. The bank accounts, the banks in the Congo, they fail a lot. And so he doesn't want me to send him a whole bunch of money to put in the bank account because it might fail. So what we do is we hold it in this Wright account, and hopefully we'll be able to send them, wire them money every so often to do the things they want to do. When they say we need to do this much to do this, well, hopefully we can fund at least part of it, if not all of it. Now, I've talked a lot about financial donations, and there are other things you can do that would help the cause. You could like our Facebook page. You could explain what child soldiers are to your friends, or ask them to watch that video. Ask them to like the Wright Facebook page. Ask your friends to. And at present, the page doesn't populate right away at the top of the search engine results. So you might need to scroll it down a little bit, or you might need to type more than RIGHT. We didn't put any dots in it for that very reason. Just type. That's really hard to put. R, boom, I, boom. It's hard. I types, or I kind of type now, but it's harder. So it's just all caps, RIGHT, and then there's a space, and then there's a dash, and then there's a space, and then relief in the Congo is probably, Jackie says that that the page will populate after you just put in relief in the Congo, and it may populate before that. But if you want to, it should come up. If it doesn't, type the whole name: Relief in the Congo
And,
for God's children from human trafficking.
and the
Or I
link is in the comments now too.
Oh,
So
great. Links in the comments.
Mhm.
So that is wonderful. Wonderful. Anyway, I don't understand a lot about technical stuff, but Jackie does, and my husband does. I know enough. I was a secretary for 30 years. I learned a lot of stuff to be able to do what I did, but it changes all the time. And it's been years since I couldn't work after I had my stroke. And I was so glad that I could type a little. I can type about 25 words a minute with a whole bunch of errors. And I yell at I yell at the screen sometimes, and Larry's going, "Oh, she's yelling at the screen. I'm leaving the room." But I don't. That just happened. What can I say? Anyway, if you can't find us on Facebook that way, or if you don't have access to the link at some point, you can send us an email, and we'll friend you, and we'll invite you to like the page. We'll send you an invitation. And our email is RIGHT to the numeral BRIC at gmail.com. So it's lowercase RIGHT to lowercase BRIC at gmail.com.
And I'll have all of that stuff in the description of the video. I'll have all of that information. So we'll get
so
it.
wonderful. I mean, man, we'd be happy to send you an invite to like the page. But Jackie says that she's made it easier for you, and that's great. So when I was first pulling things together to create Right, I sent personal appeals to several friends. They were all wonderful people. Kana and Dan Stout, Boyd's parents, they responded almost immediately. And so did Tracy Shepard. I met Tracy when we worked together on the board of directors of a local theater, and she was the treasurer for that nonprofit group. And she's an accountant, and she works for a hospital it happens to be a nonprofit. So she knows a lot of the ins and outs of nonprofits, and she's familiar with the things that need to be done, to make, you have to declare your taxes. You don't have to pay any taxes on it, but you do have to fill it all out and turn it in. And she knows how to do that really well. So we were really happy that she agreed to be the Right treasurer. My husband said, "Well, I'll do it if I have to, but hopefully he'll never have to." And the Right board of directors, if you click on the About section on the Facebook Right page, you'll be able to find it. It's Dan Stout, Boyd's dad, is the president, and he helps us to move forward in our plan. Sometimes he just says, let's table this for the moment and let's go on to something else, because it's taken way too much energy and I don't think we're going to figure it out tonight. So think about it and come back to it the next time. Another thing, he reminds us of the Roberts Rules of Order that you're supposed to go by when you run a board meeting. And then my husband, Larry Nelson, is the vice president. He's my right-hand man. At this point in my life, he helps me do a lot of things. He's always helped me.
He's my right-hand man too, just so you know.
He has helped people, and Jackie, but he could be a stagehand, he could build a set, he could run the lights, he could build the light board, he could act sometimes if I asked him to. But he did, and he's always been there. A man in the church, when I had my calling church to do a lot of stuff like this, he asked me about Larry and says, "Does he help you?" And I said, oh man, does he help me? I couldn't do this without Larry. And shortly thereafter, Larry was called to do something too. So that was what that was all about. Anyway, then we have Kana Kemp Stout, and she's the VP, the vice president in charge of special projects. And then Tracy Shepard, who I talked about as the treasurer. And then you've got me, Yvonne Nelson, who's the secretary. And I take copious notes and I write them down, and then I type up the meeting minutes and I send them out and then read them out in the board meeting. So that kind of helped you remember what you did the last meeting. I used to wonder why they did that. I used to have type minutes up for somebody, and that's really what I found, is that we go through this and we go, oh yeah, that's the point we were to on that. Okay, so I really think it does kind of help. So where's the my page? Okay, no, do you know where my Tim Ballard page is? Sorry, y'all. I had it. I
Okay.
thought, oh, there it is. Okay, all right. So, Electra, you have any questions?
Um, at this time, what we have is comments, and people are basically just giving their emotional side of, as you're talking about, this being a cruel world, and the way that they emotionally feel about the kids and what they're going through. So right now it's more of the emotional. The emotions is going on right now as you
Up
talk.
now, yeah.
I think the reason
Well,
there aren't very many questions, truthfully, is because we are used to how things work when a child gets taken in America. We're used to, Amber Alerts and, you know, whatever. But here, my brain is just fogged over with the thought that it's so common that a child can just be taken, and these rebel, and then the family will go out looking, but then while they're looking, another child is taken, and then, it's like that. It's so prevalent, and they know who's doing it, but they can't do anything about it without
well,
risking the lives of
yeah.
everybody.
I understand there's been a lot of, and it's much more in the forefront of our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Asked me 5 years ago about human trafficking, and I was like, well, I don't know, I don't know anything about it. And it's more
Mm-hmm.
than just like Jackie says, more than just grabbing a kid and putting them in a van.
Right.
Um, some of the stuff that happens is that these people start trolling online, and they're talking to your children,
Oh.
and they're
Mm-hmm.
saying things like, well, when is your dad going to be gone, so we can talk? Well, that means you're going to be home alone, and they might come take you that way, or they might say, meet me at the football field that's deserted. And what's that going to happen? Kids, the kids will go, no, no, you don't know this person. It's this. They think it's some 15-year-old boy or girl. No, 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 no. It's some
Mm-hmm.
45-year-old man, maybe. It's
Mm-hmm.
just awful. And then there's organizations that traffic people. These
Mm-hmm.
people just that steal them or talk them into doing things. Sometimes they'll say, they get to know the kids, and the kids will have, like I have, this computer that has a camera in it, and they'll say, oh, what do you look like with you take this off or that off? That's terrible. That they groom these children this way.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard of other organizations that work to fight human trafficking. I don't remember most of their names, but I do remember a nonprofit organization named Operation Underground Railroad. Now, if you ask somebody if they have heard of it, they'll probably think, if they're not aware of it, they'll think of the 1800s Underground Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's based on, the idea of that. But it's a present day thing. It's called Operation Underground Railroad, and they do O.U.R. Okay, so that's how you can tell. And they have a Facebook page just like us. I'm sure theirs is much more exciting. And and I'm a member of O.U.R. personally, and give some money and stuff like that. Not much. I give them like $10 a month, but I can do that, and it's not a lot. But would I ever give $120 at one time? Probably not. Okay, that might be nothing to some people, but it's a lot to me. And they also have their own website. It's called www.OURRESCUE rescue.org. In other words, O.U.R. rescue.org. There's two R's, O.U.R. rescue.org, and you can go there and learn more about them.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about them a few years ago. I was at a convention when the founder, Tim Ballard, spoke at it, the convention I was attending. And so I have a little bit about Tim here. And he wrote, I will tell you more about this later, but he wrote this book, and he's written 4 other books, I think, or 3 other books. I'll give you the particulars on it in a minute.
We'll put that in the description of the video. We'll put the book names in the description.
And I will take what is in a minute. He has an MA in International Politics from the Monterey Institute of International Studies. He has worked for the Central Intelligence Agency and as a special agent for the Department of Homeland Security. If I remember correctly, what he did there was they invited him to come run their human trafficking mission. And he told his wife, I can't do that. I can't be around that all the time. That's awful. It's like being in the armpit of the world, right? Or worse. And she said, the next day, she said, you know, Tim, you can't not do it.
Right.
You really need to do this. Who else is going to do it if you don't do it? So that's what he did. And he was in the midst of doing that when he heard about a mission that needed to be done in Haiti, I think, and the government wouldn't let him do it on foreign soil or something like that. But he talked to his boss, and his boss said, you know, we can't let you do that. But you know what? You could leave and start your own organization and do this stuff and make a dent and a difference in the world. And he did. They had I think they had 7 children. They might have only had 6 at the time. And he just quit his job and started trying to fundraise for this. And then when he was talking to us, I think it was about a year old. And anyway, he's the founder and CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, which rescues children from child trafficking organizations throughout the world. And he and his wife, Catherine, now have 9 children, and 2 of which he adopted in that he met in that mission in Haiti. After he rescued them, and they couldn't. If I remember correctly, it took several years to work out, and he did work it out. He works with the governments where he goes, and he works with their police or whatever. It's not just going, I'm doing this mission. He goes in and works with them and finds out what they need. He might train them, so when he leaves, he can do these sort of things themselves. But anyway, it was all done through the proper channels and accomplished through the proper channels, but they did come to live with Tim Ballard and his wife in their home. And he wrote the book, Slave Stealers, real accounts of slave rescues then and now. I bought it through the O.U.R organization, Operation Underground Railroad. I either was on their Facebook page or on their website when I bought it. And I think the money went to donation, as a donation. You know, whatever wasn't the cost of the book was a donation. And they also, I found out you can get the books on Amazon. And that's where I found these books. And I was like, gosh, he doesn't say anything about the fact that he's written 4 books or 5 books. I can't remember. He just doesn't even say it. It's not on here anywhere that he did that. But there's another book called Operation Toussaint, which is about the mission that he ran in Haiti. It saved a bunch of children, and they put a lot of people away.
You know,
there's some other books, but they're more like, it's hard to explain. They're good information. They're about the country and how it was founded and that sort of thing. Yes.
Well, we're almost out of time, unfortunately, but I wanted to throw in, I wanted to say something. You know, when we think about, you know, what's going on and how Yvonne has gotten involved with this organization in the Congo, don't think that it only happens in the Congo, because especially here in South Texas where we are, there are
By
guerrillas,
the border.
yeah, in Mexico, or even in our own valley, there are groups who target children, who sell them into guerrilla organizations in South America. And so don't ever think for a second, Yvonne has brought this to the forefront. I mean, I cannot imagine walking down the street and it being just commonplace for men with guns to come wandering down and say, grab that kid, grab that kid. And, the kids may run and scream and the mother say, get in the house, get in the house. But can you imagine living in that kind of environment? And all we can do is support as best we can. All we can do is make awareness, because the more people that are aware, the less people who are going to put up with it. That's all we can say. It breaks my heart for those families in the Congo, in Mexico, in South America. It breaks my heart. And
I got a
glad.
video
Yeah,
in an email from Operation Underground Railroad. They send me stuff, and it's got a trailer for I think it's going to be a movie called "It's Happening Right Here," a documentary.
Oh, good.
It's going to be
Good.
Netflix or something, I don't know, but I saw it, and what you said, that very same thing. It's happening right here. And they talk about some of the things that are happening, like I talked about the children talking to the cameras or showing cameras and not realizing what they're doing.
Right.
I really, I don't want you to forget about Right.
Right. I know.
Mention this because it's just an important work all throughout the world, and we're just trying to do our one thing for our one place.
And Yvonne, if you'll remember, when that volcano erupted back, a year ago, you and I and you had gotten these weird text messages from Francois's phone, and it turned out that Francois was taken again by rebels at that time.
He's been kidnapped twice as an adult. He used to be a soldier, but he's been kidnapped in the last 3 years twice, and they took everything he has.
Everything.
And he has to start all over again.
And the truth is that you do have to always be vigilant, because and Yvonne, you were saying, you were getting these text messages, and you were like, that does not sound like Francois. That does not sound. It's from his phone, and then after the fact found out that he had been taken again. We live in this comfortable world that we very seldom see evil right in front of us, because we're not looking for it, even though it's there. And let me tell you, these are the kind of things that make us say, and the podcast last week that we had was a woman, she gave a presentation about preventing the pipeline to prison, as far as like foster children are concerned, children who are sexually abused or trafficked through that system. And one of the things that she said that we talked about is, how do you keep your child from being a victim? Vigilance. You be vigilant, and know your neighbors, know who the people are on the street. Don't be complacent. And when you hear about these things happening in Africa or whatever, don't think, oh well, that's a whole ocean away. It'll never interfere with my life. It'll never affect my life. It's affecting your life right now, because these are children of God, right? Right. These are children of God that are being taken and used and abused, taught to kill people. They're being taught to kill people at a very young age. And this is what that program, BRIC, is trying to help these kids who come out of that, who somehow escape that in various ways, learn to accept themselves and become useful human beings. Oh, Yvonne, my heart is so touched.
Yeah. Well, one thing with everybody's, I'm sure there are a lot of people watching this or will watch it who have been
Mm-hmm.
affected by the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been affected by the pandemic. We live in a different
Mm-hmm.
state right
Mm-hmm.
now. But so was Brick. They've lost a ton of their
The
local funding
pandemic.
because
Yeah.
they need the funding for
And
other
when you
things.
think about what the funding
So-
does, it pays for these therapy instructors, and it pays for food and shelter and all this kind of stuff. It's not just going to some into somebody's pocket so they can live in a fancy house.
Oh, no.
No, not at all.
Grandpa had his electricity turned off, and they just got a little kind of cabin shack or whatever, and they had their electricity turned off, and he has to have money to live too, and it's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard. He and he just got married this summer, and he sent me a picture, and their fan's not even on. They have this little fan, and of course it's not on because they don't have electricity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When it's hot, it's hot.
Well, I hope Electra, are there any questions that have come up in the last little bit?
No, it's not a question. It's just like I
It's
said
comments.
right now. It's more like people are putting faces of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of an emotional. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm at an emotional state just listening to you talk about this. And so, because I have an 11-year-old granddaughter, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm scared to death because we gotta have you come back on and talk about human trafficking is a big issue. And like Jackie said, people just kind of brushing it off. But that mom and that dad that don't know where their children are right here, this is such a crucial and needed conversation. And like I said, like I'm emotional just like everybody else that's, coming up on here.
And I saw you too, Yvonne. You almost lost it. I saw it.
But Jackie, before you close out this interview, I want to tell Yvonne, we have, my late husband it's a scholarship fund. What I want to do is I want to make a donation to your organization. And so I'll get with Jackie to tell me exactly how to get that check to you. But I want to make a donation for you if it's
That's
okay.
That's the Michael James Scholarship Fund, and Electra is talking about.
Thank you very much. That's our first donation, okay? And I want to thank you for the opportunity I had to do this tonight. I mean, a week ago, I didn't know this was going to happen, and it's great. I really appreciate it.
This was all God's doing, getting this together so that Yvonne could come on. So, but we are out of time. The computer's going to cut us off if we don't cut ourselves off. So,
Okay.
Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you, Electra. And Yvonne, I'll touch base with you later so that we can get everything put in the comments that needs to be put in the comments. Okay.
Well, Jackie, you're going to show me how to get that check to her. I am gonna
do that. We'll talk later and do that too. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Larry. Bye. Yeah.
They got that here.